Hey, this is Kieran, Coach's Corner Chats, and on the podcast, I have Wendy, Arnett. Wendy, where are you at and what are you up to?
Currently, I'm in Quincy, Illinois. Just getting over with season a couple weeks ago with college and club, actually both. So regrouping, taking some downtime before the holidays, and then getting right back at it again.
So you're balancing college and club at the same time?
I am. I'm balancing college and two club teams, actually. I have a U12 and a U10, so busy.
What side are you? Is it males, females?
Females. Actually, it's kind of weird. I helped coach my first men's game this year. Our head men's coach at Culver got an accidental red card, I will say, at an away game. And so the head women's coach was coaching, and our other assistant coach coaches for both the women and the men. And obviously, the head women's coach needed to meet with our girls before our game and asked if I could fill in. So I was like, sure. It was a good time. It was an experience, and they actually got a win. So, you know, it helped. It helped build my confidence a little bit in the game with that, being able to coach both on the women and the men's side. But with my club teams, I have a U12 girls team that I have been with for 3 years. And this is my first year with the U10 team. So it's different, but they're tons of fun. So I enjoy it.
What are some of the differences between like dealing with college age, like young women, and then dealing with young girls?
Everything. Tactics, language, it's completely different, and it was different for me as well. So I actually started with the club scene here 4 years ago, and I was asked to help with a U12 team, and it was their first year together and minimal experience, and we got waxed at our first tournament. I think we gave up like 37 or 38 goals, and it was, but you know, they didn't stop playing the entire time, so that was good that they were resilient. But it was an eye-opening experience, and it made me question my abilities, because you know, with my college team, I don't know that we'd even given up 38 goals over 6 or 7 seasons. So it was different, but it was good. It showed me what I needed to work on. Patience was a big thing with them. And so I think with college, I can be a little bit more intense and more competitive. Like I want my girls to win, but I still want them to have fun. But with my younger groups, it's really about them just working hard for each other and having fun. If we win, great. If we don't, whatever. They're not going to remember that at 12 years old. They're going to remember going on these hotel trips and swimming in the pool versus if we won or lost a match. So
how long have you been at Culver?
So I've been at Culver. I just finished up my 10th season. I started in 2013. I actually graduated from there. So it's kind of unique. I went to Culver and graduated from there. Our head coach went to Culver and graduated from there. And Coach Javi is the other assistant coach, and he actually went there and graduated from there. So it's kind of a unique situation. A lot of coaches don't really still coach at their alma mater. There are a few. But so we kind of all know that scene. Like we experienced our 4 years there. We know what it has to offer, not only in the soccer realm, but as the school itself. So it's cool. I've been there 10 seasons. This last year was a little different, but it was fun. So it's always fun. I enjoy giving back to the school in that way.
When you look back at when you started in 2013 to now, what are some of the things that you've learned along the way, or even you look back and go, man, what was I doing back then?
Well, I was young and very intense and had a lot to learn. Um, it the player scope has changed a little bit. I think we recruited more kids who had grit back then, maybe more blue collar. And as the program got better, we were able to start recruiting more talent and a little less of the grittier side of things. But also, I think I'm seeing more now that kids are looking, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but kids are looking for status. They want to go D1 or D2. And we compete with those schools now, recruiting wise, because they have a larger roster to fill, whereas maybe we've kind of always had that, like a numbers. I would say, I could be wrong on this, I could kick myself, but usually our teams are around, for us, about 40 to 45 kids. We do things a little different in the aspect that some teams in our conference have a very strict like first team and then a very strict like reserve team, and they have separate practices, whereas we've never changed from that. We've always had one practice with all kids together, and it does create a challenge if everybody's healthy, but in the scope of things, like, you know, we run into academic issues, injuries. Some kids just have like outside things that they have to take care of. So sometimes we struggle to play 11v11 because of those. So I'd say we start with like 40 to 45, but we end up with like 30 to 32 healthy kids within the season. So I don't necessarily think a bigger roster is bad. But I do see where like D2 models are kind of going that route where they're now having to have numbers. And so personally, I think kids are looking for status, and each their own. Just go where you can play, I guess, is where I see it as. If you are stuck on D1 or D2, great. But I think NAIA, that's where I'm at Culver, by the way, we're NAIA. I think there's a lot to offer. Especially in our conference. I could be biased, but I think we have one of the toughest conferences top to bottom, with who could be winning each year, making it to nationals. I think this year so we get 2 bids, but I know for sure there's going to be a 3rd team that's going out of our conference. So, and I think there's a 40-team field.
Wow.
So it's tough. And those teams are tough to battle, but it's fun. I enjoy it. And I like to see how it's grown since I was a player in the conference to where it is now.
I was going to say, what possessed you once you got done, or like at what point did you think, you know, this coaching thing might be something I want to pursue?
Opportunity, I guess. So after I graduated, I moved to San Diego for a little bit. And the soccer scene there is phenomenal. So I was playing all the time. I really didn't think about coaching. But a friend of mine, I lived in Oceanside, and he was part of the Parks and Rec district there. And they had, Park and Rec soccer league, and was like, hey, you want to volunteer and coach a team? Like, he kind of thought I was an awesome player, which I think I'm an awesome player too. But I was like, all right, sure, whatever. And so it was some underprivileged kids, and so I did it for 2 years. My first year we went undefeated, which was really cool. And then the second year we did it, but it was still fun. And then family reasons brought me back to the Midwest. And then Tyler, the head coach at Culver, had reached out to me, and he's like, hey, I might need an assistant. Would you be interested? And I was like, well, heck yeah, because the soccer scene here in the Midwest is not that of San Diego. It's more, if you find a pickup league, it's all guys. There's not a ton of girls that are playing. And so it's like, if I could be involved, great. So it didn't work out that year. His assistant actually stayed with him, but I followed the team to just kind of see, how they did and stuff. And I liked what he believed in. He believed, you could be passionate about the game, but you could also do it in a positive way. And I think on the women's side that girls need that, they don't need to be belittled and berated. And sure, you can be a tough coach, but you don't have to put your players down to get the best out of them. So his assistant ended up moving. I think she was from Michigan, and I think she went back home. And so it kind of opened the door for me. And I was like, hey, let's go. If you're willing to take a chance on me, I'll try not to mess it up too bad. And I guess I did all right. So he's kept me around for a while.
You mentioned thinking, enjoying playing the game. Was this something you were playing even from, like, you talk about coaching a U10 team and a U12 team? Were you one of those girls at some point that was rocking and rolling?
So I actually didn't play soccer until I was a freshman in high school. My mother put me in dance when I was 2, and I was on a competitive dance line from 7 until I was 18. So I had pretty good eye-hand coordination. And a friend of mine in high school, Kara, she was like, hey, do you want to come play indoor with us? And I was like, sure, I don't know what I'm doing, but whatever, it sounds fun. And I went and played indoor and absolutely fell in love with it. Probably wasn't great, but I was super fast. And so I did do track in middle school. I did hurdles, and I actually had a coach that taught me how to 3-step correctly. And I was pretty fast. I don't know that I'm as fast now, but and then I had very strong legs from dance, obviously. And then after that indoor season, my mom bought me a soccer ball, and I was in our front yard, like, taking long kicks and then chasing it and going and taking another long kick and just juggling whenever I could. And so played JV my freshman year and then made varsity my sophomore year, I think just because I never could put a ball down. And thank the dance world for having eye-hand coordination. It just wasn't for me, but I felt there was a balance, and I could be physical and I could use all my attributes as a soccer player. And so when the time came, I had some talks with my mom, and we were like, I will stick with dance as long as I can play soccer. And she was cool with that. And then I got a scholarship to play at Culver. And it just kind of went from there. I moved to San Diego afterwards. I did play on several, like, in rec leagues and Latina leagues there, but I also got to train with the San Diego Sea Lions for a season. And so they're in the WPSL, and I never got to play, but I got to have Jen Neeson, I think is her last name, was the coach at the time. And it was a really cool experience. Like, I got to play with some D1 players. Rachel Bueller practiced with us one time, and so I'm a center back, and I'm 5'9", and I'm pretty, not small girl, but I'm solid, I would say. And I had never been put on my butt, and she laid me out. So Bulldozer is her name for a reason. And then Troy Polamalu actually also trained us one time, and such a cool guy, and just really cool experience, like this kid from the Midwest, a small town. I'm from Hannibal, which is right across the river. Mark Twain, I don't know if you've heard of the author, but that's his hometown. So that's what we're known for. And, it's like 17,000. And then just having these really cool experiences that soccer gave me, I guess that's kind of why I'm in coaching now. Like, just to say, hey, like, if you want more, you can do it, but you have to want it, and you have to put in the extra time and the work. And I mean, you could reach for the stars and land wherever you want as long as you're willing to try,
What are some of the roles and responsibilities that you have as an assistant coach? Like, I think people hear that and they go, oh, you're just kind of standing to the side, but I know there's a lot more involved at the college level. What things are on Wendy's to-do list?
So when I first started out, there wasn't a lot of responsibilities, but I think it was gaining trust of Tyler to allow me to do some certain things. But I was able to go recruiting a lot. I went to San Diego, obviously I lived there, so I was very familiar with the territory and where the fields were and how to get everywhere. And he trusted me with that. Something I'm really good with that I've gotten, better over the years is film breakdown. So I probably watched like tons. I mean, I couldn't even imagine the hours that I watched, but I could watch film from our conference or other games and just break down the opponent so well. And we give like a little pregame synopsis to the girls to let them know, how we're going to play, how we expect the other team to play. Filling in if he's out of commission for some reason, should he be sick, or he has a little girl, Desi's 7 or 8, I believe. And so, sick kid duty sometimes calls, or if she has something, it's conflict, like stepping in to those roles, trying to, whatever's needed. I mean, whatever's asked. I mean, I always ask, like, if there's something I can do, I'll definitely try to do it if it's in my means. But yeah, it's kind of, I don't know, just a second person, bounce ideas off of each other. Sometimes, like, I don't believe that I'm a yes man. So sometimes I'll challenge, like, what he's thinking, or like, maybe we should try a different formation depending on personnel. No, it doesn't always work out that way, but Mom always said the worst that could be said is no. So it doesn't hurt to try. But yeah, that's kind of it. Looking at scouting film from kids that are looking at Culver. So I'm a spike major. I kind of feel that I take on the mom role for our team too, being the only woman with our coaching staff, and kind of flourished in that. Like, I'm okay with it. Give out the hugs when the kids need it, but I'm okay to say, hey, like, are we being serious in our thinking, if we're thinking in a negative way or trying to blame, stuff like that. So that's a lot of hats, if you will.
Is there a part of you, so now you've been there for 10 years in that assistant role, is there a part of you that one day, once you talk about filling in for like the men's team for a game and you've stepped in for when Tyler's out, is there a part of you that wants to become a head coach at some point?
Yes and no. It kind of scares me a little bit, because then all of the responsibility is on you, whereas being the assistant, like, that does take some of it off. So I kind of help with my dad locally, and I think that's there's been other things that have happened too, but so he lives in Hannibal, and he had a stroke a while back, so he's physically able to do everything, but still has a few things that he needs assistance with, and doesn't want to move, very stubborn in that, so that kind of handcuffs me. I'm okay with it, as long as I have the ability to coach still, which I do. And then, I am the head coach of my 2 club teams. So I always talk about it. Like, I can't imagine not having them until they graduate at this point. And so, I mean, that's another 6 to 8 years. If something great came along, sure, I'd maybe toss it around. I don't know. It'd have to be something pretty great though to want to move, because I do enjoy where I'm at and what I'm doing. I like our program. I like our kids. I love our kids, I should say. We get good kids. We have good parents, which is a big thing. It takes a village. And so with my club team, I'm very blessed to have a great group of parents who, when we go to tournaments, they're not like yelling, shoot, or do this. They're just really encouraging their kids to have fun. And it's something that we kind of, as a club, have asked them to not do, as far as like coaching from the sidelines, because I don't want to be a joystick coach in that aspect. So I try to rein in, telling them exactly what to do. I want them to be independent thinkers on the field. And so I might do that a little bit more in college, where I might see something, and if somebody's not doing it, I'm like, hey, like, do this. But I try not to as much as possible, because, you know, if the kids don't do it themselves, they'll never get better. They'll always depend on you to tell them what to do and what decisions to make and things like that.
You shared earlier how your mom got you into dance and all that goes on with that, and kind of the discussion of, hey, I think soccer is kind of maybe my calling. And then even with the status of your dad and stuff health-wise, and how you've come back from San Diego, how important has, one, being close to your family? It sounds like that's very important to you. And then two, how big has it been having them supporting you in this decision and seeing you play, and then all go back to your alma mater to coach?
You know, for me, I always say, even with my Culver kids, it's family first, and then school, and then soccer. And that's just the importance of things. And so I am the only child. I don't have siblings. So when my dad had a stroke, it was kind of a no-brainer that, like, I needed to come back and help assist in his rehab and all that stuff. So not to get too sad on you, my mom was actually murdered in a robbery gone wrong in my first year of coaching at Culver. And so I was blessed that she got to see me do it, because I think she got to see me flourish in that aspect, and she supported it, and she came to home games. And a crazy story with that is we were supposed to play, I'm trying to think of where they were ranked. I think Graceland was ranked like 14th in the nation, and we were supposed to play them the day that this happened. And so we called, and the men were going to play the following day. So we moved the game back a day, and the girls played, and we ended up winning 2-1. And so the goalie for Graceland was also, I'm gonna get the country, I want to say the Colombian national team goalie. I think she was their third string goalie at the time. And the second goal that went in just was like something, in my opinion, that a goalie makes this save. And so whether it was my mom or some surreal thing for it to happen, it just kind of happened. So for me, coaching kind of became a crutch to deal with that. And so I kind of leaned into Culver, and they embraced me. And so it just feels right to do the same thing. Now I embrace them, and it's a big part of why I do what I do. I really love it, and I couldn't imagine doing anything else at this point.
The thing that I hear and love about the experience is when you were talking about the U10, U12, like being that mom for them, like you're giving back. It's really cool to take that. And the other thing that is the ability to kind of talk about it, adversity and having to work through this, I think is huge, one for you. But then if your players at all levels are hearing this and kind of know, like, we're all, mental health and all this stuff is out there now.
Sure.
So I think that experience is really cool that you're able to kind of take it and see it with that. As you kind of keep looking forward, and you said something about this past year, and it kind of, I wanted to come back to it about the soccer season. You said this past year was kind of a strange one. What was this past year like, maybe compared to some of the other ones?
So I think we lost our identity a little bit. Within our culture, we've always been very positive. We say one team plants the seed and another one enjoys the shade. And so in 2021, we had an extremely phenomenal year. We set or continued to break records that were set, and we had, so I guess I should back up. We hadn't been to conference playoffs since, I want to say, I think it was 2016. And so our 2021 group decided, like, why not us? That was going to be our like motto. Like, why can't we make playoffs? Like, why can't we be this team? And they really bought into that. And we, we're happy for our teammates. We're selfless players. And that's that group. And there was a ton of talent too, don't get me wrong. But we made it to playoffs. We actually ended up 4th in conference, which allowed us to host our first playoff game ever, because we had made playoffs, but we were always on the road. And so it was a really cool experience. And we ended up falling short in that game. But then this year, I feel like things were maybe a little bit more important outside of soccer. Whereas last year, or in 2021, it was like soccer first, and then, outside factors, not like classes or stuff, but just life, if you will. Yeah. And then, and its growth too. I think it's hard to try to duplicate a season like that. There were other factors, injuries, players not returning, things like that, but it's just little hiccups that all coaches have to deal with, and teams, and some handle it a little bit better than others. And I don't know. This year was just different with that. We weren't as selfless, I feel like, as a group. There was a little bit of divide, unfortunately. But again, that falls back to us coaches to be able to make that happen a little bit more. And maybe we're to blame for that. I mean, I ultimately would say that we're to blame for that, because we should have done something different. But hindsight's 2020, like, going forward, sure, we know we need to fix things, but in the moment, it's kind of hard to see those things. And so still a good group. It was hard, I think, for us as coaches to swallow, because it was record-wise it was our first year that we've had together. So that was a tough thing to swallow too. But again, coming off of a really good year, I don't know what maybe the players expected, if we would just kind of coast into being that same team, or if maybe we could have done things differently. But we're, having individual meetings right now and learning some things that the coaches don't necessarily see in season. But, now moving forward, we know what everybody may have saw that we didn't, things we can change and tailor, whether it's in practice or off the field. I know that team bonding was one that the girls have brought up, but we try to remind them, like, the coaches don't always have to be present for team bonding. If you guys want to, like, have a movie night, like, have a movie night, like, get everybody together, or I don't know what other things kids can do. But I like to do, like, the fun team bonding stuff, usually when it's warmer outside, like with water balloons or buckets of water. I don't know, just fun, like, let loose, let's get off of soccer for a little bit and things like that. So I do think that we had a special group of seniors this year. Definitely going to miss them, next year. But then coming back, we have some kids returning from injury, and a lot of talent returning, and then some grit too. So just trying to plug in a few recruits here and there to fulfill the needs of some kids that are moving on, and try it again next year,
I think the cool thing is the ability to, you're clearly self-reflecting. Even Tyler, I'm sure, has had conversation with you about, like, what things can we do differently. And I think the cool thing is that you've incorporated the players into this mix. Like, we're all accountable. Like you said, it's on us as coaches as well. What can we do moving forward to take care of it and fix it and all that kind of stuff? With that, have you always played in Illinois? Is that, you've said you've lived there, so is that always been kind of your soccer mecca, I guess, in a way?
So Canton, Culver is actually in Missouri. It's about 15 minutes away in Canton, Missouri.
Oh, got it.
But so we kind of draw, like, as far as player wise, we used to be like Metro, St. Louis area, like, grab a lot of kids from there. Every now and then get a few Kansas kids, but our conference is pretty spread out. I think the furthest north is Dubuque, Iowa. But then there's also Grandview and Graceland are in our conference. They're in Iowa, and then Baker, Benedictine, Mid-America, Nazarene, they're on the west side of Missouri into Kansas. And then Evangel's leaving after this year, but they're down in Springfield, Missouri. So our conference is like kind of all over the Midwest, if you will. And so I have a special place in my heart for the California kids. So it's just a different style to me than some of the Midwestern soccer that you see. There's a little bit more flair. But over the years, we've had kids from Australia, Spain. This year, we have our first kid, a couple of firsts actually. We have a kid from Sweden, a kid from the Netherlands, a kid from Iceland. So it's kind of all over. So I think competing with a couple of D2 schools around the area and a D1 in St. Louis kind of grabs that St. Louis group anymore. So it's tough to get those kids nowadays. And I think that's where I see sometimes like the status of the level that you're playing at. And that, like I said, it's fine. If you wanna play at a school because they have a D1 or a D2 with their name, like just make sure that you're gonna play and not sit the bench. Like I think the worst thing for me to see as a coach when I go to recruit someone is like if they have a ton of talent or their ceiling could be high. And if they're just going to go to a school and sit for 2 years, I feel like they're not getting the best for themselves. And I think they should just give themselves the right opportunity to play for 4 years, whether that's, an NAIA school or 2 years at a JUCO and then go to a 4-year school. There's just a ton of different options that kids have these days, and just to be realistic about what opportunity is the best for you. I think that's what I like to see the most. And there's a few that I've seen go here or there, and I'm like, darn it, we missed out. But it is what it is, that's just the coaching realm of college. You could be all in on a kid and they might have 1 foot in on you and 1 foot out. And sometimes it's a gamble. It's always a gamble. It's not sometimes, it's always a gamble on what kids, unless I think Culver's pretty special. It's a little different from when I was there, but we do class-wise, we do a 12-week, 3-week schedule. So for 12 weeks, kids have like 3 or 4 classes, and then they'll have Thanksgiving break, and then after that they'll come back, and then for 3 weeks they just have 1 class. And it's experiential learning. So sometimes they'll do trips. Well, most, not all, but some. I know one has gone to like a bowl game down in Florida, and I think it's a sports management class, and they like run the bowl, like the entire thing, like they're helping involvement. Other kids have gone to like Belize or Ireland with history classes and stuff like that. So I wish we had that when we were there, because we were still the straight 15-week. But that's something that kind of makes Culver a little unique. So it is a small town close to Quincy, which is kind of bigger, and then it's a couple hours north of like St. Louis. So I mean, you can still get your big city vibes if you want them, but everything's on campus. Kids live on campus. From experience, don't need a car. If you got a bicycle, great. You can walk everywhere. The frat houses and so we have a turf field now, but when I was there we had a grass field, and it was up by our baseball field, so it was a further walk. But I mean, you could get from one side to campus to the other within 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes if you're like turtle walking or something. I don't know, but it's a really beautiful place, and it's special for a lot of different reasons, not just because I went there, but it's got a lot to offer, and it's got a beautiful view of the Mississippi River. I mean, it's not called the Hill for anything, you know?
Wendy, this chat has been awesome. I'm going to go ahead and shut this thing down. This is Karen with Coach's Corner Chats with Wendy Arnett, and I'm out. Peace.
Peace.